Hi, and welcome back to the HE Enabled podcast. This is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, neurodivergence, and long-term health conditions in the UK higher education system. I'm Kath, and this week I am joined by Emily. Emily is a design graduate, freelancer, and the host, founder, and producer of the 21andsensory podcast. We are doing a collaboration, which is very exciting. Her show interviews neurodivergent people from all walks of life. Obviously, has some overlap with what I do. This episode will be going out before mine is, but we're recording them back to back. I've just recorded, I think it's good. Should be good. So please, go check out Emily's show as well. I'll put it in the episode description. I will put it on socials when my episode's out later this month. But I'm going to introduce you now. Yeah, Emily, hi, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, we've just done one podcast and now we're on our second.
It's a bit of a slog, isn't it? Yeah.
No, I'm excited.
It is good, it's good. You get to 2.5 hours and you're like, where's my water? I need a refill. Yeah. We'll get there. We're marathoning. It's a marathon. Mm-hmm. So obviously I know who you are because we've just had a nice long chat. But please could you introduce yourself a little to my listeners and share a bit about your background in higher education?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Emily. I am 31 years old and I first of all, I actually studied an art foundation course at university. And then I stayed on at the exact same university and did a graphic design degree for 3 years. So yeah, in total for 4 years I was at university. I went to University of the Creative Arts. I'm not going to say which campus, if that's okay.
That's okay.
There's a few different campuses. And yeah, I graduated in 2016 with a first class honours degree. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And then for the past 8 years, I have been working as a graphic designer and illustrator, basically for tech companies in the UK. But I am now freelance and hopefully going to be able to do some more of the sensory and autism side of things, which I love doing as a freelancer. And yeah, people contact me to do sort of illustrations for autism and sensory research stuff. So I've been enjoying doing that. So yeah, I do a bit of everything. That's a little bit about me.
Yeah, like when I make these questions, I usually look at people's LinkedIns because it's the best reference I have in terms of you get a chronology of when people are doing stuff.
Yeah.
And I was reading yours and it was just balls of words. It's like, here's my 17 projects I've been working on. But to be fair, A, not only is it very exciting, but B, some of it's actually been freelance work with universities.
Yes.
And we will chat about that later.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, obviously you run a podcast about neurodivergence. We can guess where this question is going. But if you're comfortable saying, how did your disabilities, neurodivergence impact your experience of higher education?
Yeah, well, kind of going back a bit. So primary school, sort of age 8, I was told by an occupational therapist that I had sensory sensitivities and something called sensory processing disorder. So that was all I had kind of going into education. And because of my kind of processing difficulties, that meant that I got 25% extra time at GCSEs and A-levels. So that was kind of all that I was kind of aware of. I didn't really get that much support at all in secondary school. I went to a mainstream state secondary school. And then after my A-levels, I decided to do an art foundation course, which funnily enough, my secondary school did not deem me as a leaver. They didn't put me on their leavers list because I was doing a foundation course and not a degree. Honestly, baffling. I know. But anyway, so yeah, in my art foundation course, when I first started, the university was doing a whole university-wide initiative to screen people for dyslexia, which
that's cool.
Yeah, very cool. I was like, okay, great. Me and my friend did it, and then basically anyone who kind of scored a certain level would be asked back for an actual assessment. And we got our assessment results and both me and my friend got called back and we were like, oh, okay. This could explain a lot.
It's like an acting gig.
Yeah, literally. So I went to the student disability services, and they were really nice, and they said that they would go halves with me on a dyslexia assessment. So the assessment was £300 and they'd pay half. I was like, okay, this could, potentially help me in terms of, having a dyslexia tutor who would help me with essays and stuff kind of later on down the line. And I was planning on staying to do the graphic design degree. So I thought, you know what, this could be beneficial. So yeah, I had an assessment at the university. I think it was over a whole day. It was long.
That's intense.
I know. And then I found out there and then that I'm dyslexic at the age of 19. So yeah, kind of wish I'd known that a little bit earlier. So that was interesting to know before going into my actual degree, because I kind of had some support through kind of writing essays and stuff with their tutor, and also I was able to apply for DSA, so that meant that I could get things like a dictaphone and stuff. And I know you've mentioned how much you recorded during lectures at university. I was the exact same. I was the person that people would come to for the recording at the end of the day. They'd be like, Emily, hook us up with the lecture recording.
You got the goods.
Yeah, exactly. I became that person. So yeah, dyslexia has definitely impacted my experience of higher education. And then at the age of 25, I was actually diagnosed as autistic. So that was way out of education. I think it definitely impacted my experience of higher education. I just didn't know it. So I guess that's kind of the best way to describe. Kind of going more back to the question, because I kind of feel like I just said to you about all the diagnoses.
No, that's important. It's important.
Yeah, I kind of feel like university for me, it was difficult because not knowing I was autistic, I always struggled with change and transition. So transitioning from primary to secondary to uni was quite hard. And I think for me, it felt important to stay at that university after the foundation. The foundation course was almost like a trial. But I knew that I could never live at university on campus. So I went to a campus that was drivable distance from me, and I still lived at home, which I think baffled a lot of people. But I was like, no, I just want to keep, the change is big enough as it is already, kind of thing. I don't want to move as well. So yeah, I just would kind of drive in, etc. But I think for me, the main kind of things were the socializing aspect of it and the sensory issues as well, that I kind of knew that I struggled with anyway, but didn't realize was also a kind of autism thing. So yeah, I guess it was just kind of navigating that at the age of 19, and yeah, realizing I'm dyslexic at the same time. It was a lot, and I was also struggling with mental health stuff as well. So there was just a lot happening all at one time. But I do definitely think not living on campus was a good thing for me. It was one less thing to worry about. So I'm hoping that explains a kind of overview of it.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that living on campus isn't for everyone, whether that's what they choose to do or whether it's financial reasons, which we're seeing more and more. But I will say that you were ahead of the curve there. The big trend is now towards living at home during your studies, and absolutely great example. Also, big shout to your uni for doing dyslexia screenings.
I know,
because those, I don't believe dyslexia diagnoses are offered on the NHS, are they?
No, this was definitely a private one that I guess the uni had some sort of partnership with this local assessor, so that's why we went halves on it. I don't think it's ever been an NHS thing as far as I'm aware, which is a bit wild, really. Yeah,
dyslexia, because it's frontal lobe as well. It's not just I'm struggling to read words well. It's more than that. It's executive functioning, and it can affect executive functioning. It runs so much deeper than words on a page.
Oh, massively, yeah. I had no idea.
Honestly, we've covered this a bit already about accessing higher education. So obviously you did the foundation course first.
Yeah.
And then you spoke about what it was like accessing higher education once you got your dyslexia diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So you already had like diagnose, was it sensory sensitivity disorder?
Sensory processing
Sensory
disorder
processing
was what
disorder.
it was at the time. Yeah.
SPD, of course it is. And you were going through with your sensory processing disorder diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any other notes on it, what was your experience accessing higher education like from a disability standpoint? It can be your foundation course, it can be transitioning to your bachelor's, like whatever you want to chat about.
I think being kind of diagnosed sort of by the uni, within the uni, made it easier for them to kind of transition me as a student from the foundation course to the graphic design course, because it was all like attached to me through the uni. So I almost benefited from finding out late and via university about the dyslexia, because it was something they owned, basically, if that makes sense. Like they kind of had orchestrated the whole thing.
They had you on file.
Yeah, literally. And they were very supportive and very much like, you know, make sure you see, like, I could see like a counsellor each week or two. I could see my dyslexia tutor and book in appointments with her. And she'd go through like the different programs I could use as part of my like DSA. But also she would help me with essay writing, which was going to be kind of crucial when it got to like dissertation stages and stuff. But just having someone to like proofread and just sense check my work was really helpful, because having another student read it is great, but having someone who's a dyslexia tutor is going to pick up on those things that other people might not. So yeah, I definitely think it was a good experience. And yeah, just the fact that I was screened for it as part of the uni meant that they were like so up for putting the accommodations in place, basically, which was great. So yeah, I think it was a positive experience overall.
That is so cool that they gave you that support. I feel it's relatively uncommon for tutors to be provided by the university. I know for the first time this year, the episode that we did on the disabled student survey, that ended up being that I think it was only for the first time this year they started counting DSA provided support as part of their survey to see what students are receiving. So I'd always assumed that kind of stuff was always provided through DSA, but according to the survey and obviously through what you've just told me, that isn't the case.
Yeah, unless I don't know whether maybe it was funded as a whole through the university, but there were multiple tutors that were like bookable. So I assume like it wasn't done on a like case by case basis. It was almost like they were fully employed by the uni.
Yeah, if you're on DSA, you know that you're on DSA. Like it would have been really clear. So it sounds like they were provided by the uni, which is incredible. And it sounds like in that respect, it was a relatively easy ride. You know, if you're comfortable talking about it, I know that I saw on your socials you've had a couple of other diagnoses since going to university. I think you spoke about your autism diagnosis, didn't you? And how that came to be. I guess you kind of grieve that idea of what could have been. It's a conversation I've had with other guests recently.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, it's kind of hard not to. I think, especially once you're kind of done and through education, you're like, damn it, could my journey have been different if I had support for autism and dyslexia earlier on? It's better not to think like that, but it's hard not to.
I think that's kind of what you have to train out of yourself. I think the default response is, oh my goodness, you know, this could have been resolved years ago. You know, to me, the signs were so obvious now that I know what I was looking for. How did this never happen? But there's so many reasons.
Yeah, definitely. It's frustrating, but I'm glad that I know whether it's late or early.
True. On the whole, though, it sounds like your experience was relatively positive, which is awesome. But I also wanted to ask you if you encountered any obstacles during your time at uni, and did you manage to overcome them? If so, how?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I did end up in my second year having surgery on my back. So that was definitely an obstacle, but that was one of my own personal obstacles. But that also meant that I had to just be really careful, like planning how I was going to do the uni work and stuff. And I got, I think, is it called like special consideration or something?
Compassionate marking or...
Yeah, something along those lines of, we understand you're going through a thing. So I just had to provide like hospital letters and stuff to be like, yes, she is having surgery. And yeah, I just had to be careful in terms of recovery, but I really felt like I was missing out because there was kind of like a month or two where I couldn't go into university because I couldn't drive after the surgery. I think that was quite isolating in a way, but it meant that when I did get back to uni, I had to build up being social all over again. But I think I'm glad that I had the surgery when I did, kind of thing, because it sorted the issue I was having with my back, number one. But also it had happened lined up into second year. Like if it had been in third year, that would have been so stressful. So I chose a good time, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think that was kind of one of the main obstacles to come over. But also just, I guess, because I've never been very academic, I think essay writing has always been quite difficult for me. I didn't just choose graphic design because of this, but I chose the course because it was coursework only, so no exams, because I've always struggled in exam situations, and I used to get 25% extra time at like GCSE and A-levels, and I just thought if I can show everything through coursework that I can do at my own pace, I shouldn't really have to do an exam. So yeah, when people talk about exams in university, I'm like, I don't know that. It's so great that I don't know that. Because yeah, they're just, some people are not exam people, and I'm not an exam person. So yeah, I think those were kind of the main things, was just trying to get to grips with being dyslexic, but also kind of trying to harness the fact that I clearly think differently, and that might be a good skill as a graphic designer in terms of, you know, designing logos and things. Like I might look at stuff from a different perspective. So I was trying to learn more about myself, I guess.
What's ended up being quite a funny coincidence, actually, is Lewis was on the show last week. His episode's not out as we're recording, but he's also a graphic designer and did a BDes, which I didn't know was a kind of degree that existed. I assume they were all BAs.
What? I've never heard of that.
It's got a BDes. It's awesome. BDes, Bachelor of Design.
Cool.
But one thing that we discussed in his episode was how, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, in studying graphic design, it kind of ended up that the briefs and how everything was managed, you'd end up wanting for divergent thinking. And you'd be like, I'm going into this industry where it's really, we in a way glorify artists, right? And using unconventional approaches, at least in like, for part of the industry. And then actually studying graphic design, I think he actually struggled with how that was managed. Did you find that the way the course was structured and like your briefs and everything like that were good for you as a graphic design student?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I feel like university didn't teach me to be a graphic designer, or it didn't really teach me about kind of what it might be like to have that like role full time. It taught me the fundamentals of design. So it was essentially going to design school and learning about the foundational bits of design. And I kind of feel like, other than that, I'm very much self-taught in terms of software and understanding briefs and understanding sort of stick to brand guidelines and things like for different companies. And I do definitely feel like it didn't prepare me for the fact that at university you get relatively clear briefs, which sometimes have, you know, you can kind of work within and do your own thing. But a lot of the time in the real world, people don't know what they want design-wise, and they also don't know how to articulate what they might like. So I think it would have been helpful to almost have been taught a bit like, show 2 to 3 options initially, see which one they like, and then kind of develop that one better, and then kind of like how many rounds of revisions something might need. So I kind of feel like the working part is never really taught. You learn that on the job. But I definitely think the briefs and stuff at university, some of them were quite kind of narrow and quite like there was only a certain way you could do things, whereas actually in the real world I feel like sometimes clients will give you the kind of trust and responsibility to do what you see fit, which is really nice. So I don't know if I've answered your question there, but yeah, I feel like having learnt the design fundamentals, I didn't necessarily learn the working practices at university. So maybe that was the one downfall, I guess. But I don't know whether they could teach that. So yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I probably haven't summarised Lewis's experience as well as I could have, but it's definitely an interesting comparison because his was like a lot of vague briefs and struggling with group work, whereas it sounds like the course that you did, I don't want to use the word academic, they were both degrees, but was a lot more theory based, I guess.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of design theory and learning the kind of basic principles of design. And then I remember there being a bit of group work, but otherwise I kind of feel like it was a lot of independent work because a lot of graphic designers, I've worked in an agency before briefly, but other than that I've always worked as a solo graphic designer in-house, so it is quite an independent role. There's usually maybe only one of you in the company, so I kind of feel like it was a bit different. But then this was back, I graduated in 2016, so I guess maybe it was different times potentially, but I hate nothing more than a vague brief.
I want this to be green. It's always interesting hearing like different experiences from the same course at different universities, because you can just forget how wildly different they are.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Because also I'm surprised that they didn't give you more freelance experience in your briefs as well, because correct me if I'm wrong, I've always associated a lot of graphic design with freelancing. And I obviously know that's not everyone, there's in-house graphic designers, but I've always thought of it as like a more freelancey kind of job. And I'm surprised there wasn't as much freelance preparation, I guess, as...
Yeah, I think, I think the reason for that is that nowadays you hear graphic designers and they work remote. And I think post-COVID, it's so normal. But pre-COVID, it was like every graphic designer's got to be in the office, got to be like the whole like bums on seats, got to be seen to be working kind of thing. And I now feel like that in terms of a role, it's seen as way more of a remote role than it ever kind of has been. Like when I graduated in 2016, I went straight to work in like a local digital agency as a junior digital designer. And I was there for maybe 8 months. And there weren't remote jobs then. There just weren't. Like, especially for like graphic design roles, like you had to be in an agency. It was only after that kind of year that I started to see in-house roles sort of start to appear more locally. And that's when I changed jobs. But yeah, honestly, it was never, ever mentioned really about freelancing at uni. And it was certainly never mentioned that you could work remote or work from home. It was you work in a studio, you work in an agency, you work in an office. That was it. And I think if I'd realised that, I don't know what I would have done, but if I'd known that I was autistic, I think I would have been like, oh, well, I don't want to be working in that sort of environment. And I'm saying that as someone who's worked in an office for 10 years now. So I'm now a freelancer, but previously 10 years in an office I've made myself do and hated it. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting.
No, it is, and we'll chat more about your freelance work later on in the show. I'm going to drag this conversation back, kicking and screaming, to your uni experience. I was just wondering whether you had any kind of clubs, societies or initiatives that made a really positive impact on your time at uni?
That is a very good question. I was not part of any clubs or societies.
That's fair.
I think it was a very small university when I went. I think they kind of offer some more courses now. And actually, I went to one of, I believe, 5 campuses, and now there's only like 2 or 3 campuses connected with that university. So I think they have slimmed down a bit. I remember there was a society for like Quidditch, which I was always like, do they just run around with brooms? How does it work?
It's a full contact sport.
Yeah, I was like, wow. But no, I never. I think also because I didn't live on campus, I think if I maybe had, I would have been more inclined to find out more about people living around me and stuff like that. And I kind of found that hard after foundation year because I kind of knew a lot of people from foundation, and a few of them moved on to the graphic design course, but not all of them. So it was kind of making a new group of friends within the graphic design course, which I did do, but it's just, that was the only way that I socialised, was with people that were on my course.
And I guess it's tricky as well because until recently a lot of insight hasn't really gone into commuting students and how best to engage them.
Yeah, I think it's just, especially you're a student. I was working part-time in a retail job, and petrol, insurance, like I didn't want to be spending more money than having to get to and from university. I also didn't take a maintenance loan. I just took the tuition fee because I was working, and I was like, it's one less thing to worry about and pay back and stuff. So I think as well, I didn't want to be spending money on extracurricular stuff, basically. And I was lucky that I had part-time work and they were always keen for me to do like extra hours.
And I guess the maintenance though would have stung a bit more because if you graduated in 2016, so you would have started in 2012 as the fees came in 2012, no? Course fees?
Correct.
Oh.
You would be correct in thinking that, Kath, because the year before it was 3k and my year it went up to 9k.
Oh, mate, that's rough.
And I was like, but the year younger than me has done it for 3. Like, at least I'd have been able to maybe, pay that off more feasibly than 9k a year. But yes, I was the year it went up.
Well, you're in good company. People pay off their student loans like that, especially their undergrad loans are wild. They can get so high nowadays, especially doing like medicine or something.
I just don't know how you're ever gonna, make a dent in it, kind of thing, paying it back.
That's the neat part. You don't.
Well, yeah, true.
It's pay on interest for 30 years and it just disappears.
I know, but it starts to come out. It comes out of your salary as soon as you got like a full-time job, and it's like,
Yeah.
So annoying.
Like a master's loan, I feel like you can wipe out. It's a lot more doable if you can nip it in the bud early, but undergrad loans are another beast entirely.
Yeah, it's wild to think that the people the year before paid not paid, but got tuition for 9k for 3 years when we went to 9k for a year.
And then there's my parents who are like, yeah, we did uni for free.
Yeah, don't even start me on the free people.
Happy for them, but like, oh my God.
Yes, happy for you.
This next question, answer however you please. Have you experienced any instances of your disability, neurodivergence, anything proving helpful in a higher education setting?
I think, without kind of realising, I think I was able to graduate with a first-class degree because I'm autistic, because I am able to hyper-focus in on tasks. We love to hear it. And I think I just lost myself in coursework in a good way. I loved it. I love it. And I think graphic design, since like year 10 secondary school, is something that I've wanted to pursue as a career. And the fact that I got to do it full time, I didn't have to do any other academic subjects. Like, as soon as I got to uni, I was just able to do graphic design. It was all I wanted to do. So I think it also hasn't ever felt like a job because it is something I fundamentally love. So I do think my disability has been helpful in that it means that I look at things in a different way, which is great for graphic design, because a lot of people might get stuck in terms of trends and doing what other people are doing, whereas I think I see things differently in a good way. And yeah, being able to hyper focus and I guess being very in tune with my senses, which is most of the time not very helpful, but it can be helpful when designing and trying to picture, what someone else will think of your design. So I think those are the ways in which my disability has been helpful. It has helped me creatively, I think.
Hyperfocus is always just such a fickle beast.
Oh, it's great, but it's also you have that time blindness, which I know we've spoken about in my podcast, but yeah, you just lose time. You lose all sense of time and basic human needs like water and food.
Yeah, make sure that you put rest in. Make some Pomodoro times. Yeah. I've made an episode on this, I'm pretty sure. Go listen to the survival guide. I always feel cautious asking, there's this thing that obviously you've been diagnosed with based on a model that might not encourage you to look at it in a positive light. Like a lot of things are diagnosed based on the deficit model. But when I originally conceptualized this question, because I knew I wanted to ask something like it, I was always worried how people would reply. Especially because I didn't know how I'd answer myself. I didn't know if I could. So to have so many answers like this, and especially like yours, I think is just incredibly enlightening. And I'm glad it's not just doom and gloom.
Oh, thanks. It's hard. It's only with time that I think I've gotten to that place of actually being autistic and knowing this about myself does mean that I am different. I think different, and that helps me creatively. But I wouldn't have got to that without that kind of time and space after my diagnosis. I'm 31 now, and I was diagnosed at 25, and obviously it was helping me at uni at the age of 19. So yeah, it's realizing stuff about yourself and it all lining up that helps.
Time can definitely help as well.
Yeah, massively.
One thing that you've mentioned, at least I read through your giant profile, as I mentioned earlier, is the small mountain of freelance work you've done. And for the most part, you specialize in graphic design, but you've also done a bunch of work with universities. Some of it was graphics, but some of it's research projects as well. You've worked with Oxford Uni, Reading Uni, Durham, among others. Feel free to add more. What's it been like going back into higher education as a freelancer and researcher?
That is a very good question. I think it's been really interesting to see it from the other side. I'm not paying to be here. I'm being paid to come in, kind of thing, which is interesting. I think it's also kind of fascinating to see how different universities kind of work internally. Yes. So yeah, universities are so keen to get people in who have lived experience of the thing that they're researching. So with the universities you mentioned, Oxford, Reading, Durham, I think, there's been other ones like UCL, Stirling, lots of random universities. So I've either been employed as a illustrator or a research collaborator, or sometimes both. So that's been really, really interesting, and it's been mainly focused around autism and sensory processing kind of issues. And yeah, I do think it is different working as a freelancer and going back into higher education. I think it's scary because I'm not academic, but actually they want to work with you because you're not. They want to work with you because of your lived experience, obviously. But it's scary holding your own in, meetings and things with other lecturers, professors, industry leaders, that sort of thing. So it can be a little bit daunting. And I do think autism-wise for me, it's the kind of social and communication side of things. But because these people are autism and sensory researchers, they tend to sometimes be neurodivergent or are very aware of how best to work with neurodivergent people. So actually, some of their communication and knowing what they want has been so much clearer than working with any other client, because they get it to some degree. They understand that, I might need further clarity or just really like clear, blunt instructions, just a bullet list of stuff rather than what they want in the body of an email, like having to pick out stuff. Whereas if they can provide me with a list of like, we need this, this, and this, and we need it for this time, this date, etc., that's great. So yeah, I definitely think, having worked with different universities, it's interesting to see also how they collaborate and work alongside their own like disability services, because the research as well, a lot of the research that we've kind of done is into sensory environments and enabling spaces for autistic people. And a lot of the universities are like, can you tell us more as researchers about how we can make our university more enabling in terms of the space? So I think it's great when universities can learn through their own research and like use their own expertise, which I'm definitely finding like more of. But yeah, it's just been really interesting. Like, I made an e-guide as part of a project called Sensory Supermarket, and both myself and Dr. Karen McLennan, she's at Bath University now, but we worked on an e-guide that helps retailers to understand how they can make their spaces more kind of enabling and what is disabling about them. So things like tills making constant beeping noises, which they can actually turn down / turn off, and things like lower like levels of lighting, because there's a lot of like strip lighting and stuff like that, and smells, and some of it is quite, just like simple ideas, but like making that e-guide was so interesting. And it's interesting to see that retailers, they're getting the gist of it finally. So yeah, I think it's good. I've been able to work on some really interesting research and projects as well, and I think they understand me better than corporate clients.
Have you also worked on any lived experience for like inputted your lived experience for students and did like how the university runs itself, or has it mainly been research projects?
I've done some talks for like student unions. I did one for like St Andrews University to people that use their disability like services and stuff, and like kind of just a bit about me and my background and how I found university. And I've kind of been on like advisory panels before for different, not necessarily research projects, but like advising on how I would feel as an autistic person in like certain situations and things. So I kind of feel like it's not always research necessarily, but yeah, like even to do with like kind of healthcare side of things as well. There's so much research that is going on though, and it's great that they're actually looking for participants that are neurodivergent to get involved.
I'm so stoked that this research is happening, not just because it is happening, but because it means it's being funded.
Yeah.
And that's just so good. So needed. Great. Happy. I'm just going to swap a couple questions here, because we're already talking about your work with universities, and I was wondering, given that that's an environment you've worked in from more of an outside perspective, do you feel, either from your own experience or from the work that you've done, like we're heading in the right direction for creating a more neuro-affirming student staff experience? If you want to talk about just the student experience, that's fine.
Yeah, I feel like there's a little bit of a way to go, but it's going in the right direction. I think things more widely, like just seeing like neurodivergent people being more represented like online and through TV and films and stuff like that, kind of really helps in terms of even just staff being more aware, because I don't think at the moment there's enough training. And I know that's something you've kind of talked about training for supervisors, lecturers, etc. I think if there was a bit more of that, I think at the moment a lot of staff rely on if they know anyone who is disabled in their own families or their own friends, or they've come into contact with a student who's neurodivergent, etc. I think unless they've come into contact with someone, they don't have necessarily that background or training, which I understand, but I think the universities need to do more to, I don't know, potentially make the staff more approachable even, or do you know what, even knowing if a staff member was neurodivergent themselves would be amazing. I feel like people are quite expressive with like their lanyards and putting on badges, like they might share their sexuality or gender or stuff through pride flag and stuff, and it kind of opens up conversations, those pin badges. I don't know if you get that as well, but seeing like people wearing their staff passes and lanyards and stuff, and I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that, like making the invisible more visible. I don't know if that's come across right, but
I get exactly what you mean. It got me thinking. So I've got an upcoming guest on the show who's a very, very exciting guest, and I hope she doesn't mind me announcing her now, but do you know Professor Jackie Carter from the Let's Talk Disability podcast?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So she's coming on in a couple weeks' time. Really excited for that one. But I know that she talks a lot about, particularly in the staff space, what we can do for like people with disabilities, disabled folk, and actually holds senior leadership accountable. Her aim, I think, is to do a lot with staff, and if we can curate that culture where staff are happy to be themselves, then that's just all that can do is trickle down.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it just makes conversations easier. It's like me as an autistic creator talking to autistic people online. It's like that sense of community and finding people that get you, and you don't have to explain yourself because they just know the struggles because they've gone through it themselves. I think if I was to have found that in a staff member, that would have been really cool and would have made them like a lot more approachable. Whereas, for example, I masked a lot at university and had to suppress things like stims and stuff that I didn't really realise were stims. But I was such I had to manufacture myself to fit into this environment. And I didn't realise it. But if I had known another autistic staff member, just to confide in and be like, I'm really struggling in this lecture because there's too many people, there's too many noises, etc. That would have been huge. So I get it's tricky because staff might not want to be that upfront with the kind of diagnoses and stuff, but I think when they are, it is really cool.
No, for sure. And I hope that more staff can come out in time and talk about their own experiences. And whether it's because they now want to, or whether they feel safer for them to do so, or they learn more about themselves. I think however they learn that is just wonderful. I want to help you plug your show now. So 21andsensory podcast has been going a while. Recently passed its 100th episode a few months ago. Congrats. And some of the episodes are you, especially during what you call the first season, up to episode 17, is you talking about autism, sensory processing, and everything that's going on there, and your personal experience with that, and tips and tricks and whatnot. But since then, the majority of the episodes have been you interviewing neurodivergent guests, which is awesome. And I was wondering, you've done a lot, you've heard a lot of things. What do you think the main thing you've learned is from your podcast interviews?
Oh, that's such a great question. Also, I would recommend starting, if you're going to listen to the podcast, to start from episode 17 onwards, because the sound quality is just awful because it's just me on my phone up until number 17. I didn't have a microphone. This was in 2017, I think. So yeah,
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the main thing that I've learned from the many interviews that I've done is that everyone is going through something or has been through something. And I think I've learned that it's really important to be kind. I think it's really important to just not judge people and don't be quick to judge, because so many people are battling so many different complex things or have been through some really hard times, and it doesn't show, and these things aren't visible, a bit like the kind of hidden disabilities, and you can't see when someone's necessarily struggling, like sensory wise, for example. And I think it's just made me realise that nobody is perfect, especially with the online sphere. We're all kind of striving for this perfection through like comparison, I guess, and that's not who we are as humans. We're really complex, interesting beings, and I think I've learned most that everyone has their own story and everyone has gone through something, and we just need to be a little bit more kind and look out for people more. I think that's what I've learned. And also that so many people are late diagnosed, and I wish that they'd been diagnosed sooner.
Hopefully with more awareness that bit's at least changing soon.
Yeah.
At least a bit.
But it's so frustrating to hear like so many people have been through so many misdiagnoses to get to the diagnosis, and it's just, I can't imagine getting my diagnosis was huge for me, and I didn't have any misdiagnoses, so I just don't know how people navigate with such bravery to be like, I don't think I'm that. I've learned a lot.
I can imagine 100 like interviews, or well, close to. That's incredible. Like, I'm so glad I asked that question, because there's few other podcasts that have that many guests, especially when it focuses on neurodiversity. Like, it's not common, so it's always like, it's like, you know, what are the questions you'd love to ask? And I think that's a good one. We got a couple of questions left, short and sweet. First one, is there anything you want to achieve next through your work?
I think that my aim has always, since about 2017, when I started the whole 21andsensory thing, and also just behind the name, I was 21 years old and struggling sensory wise, in case anyone's like, what the hell is that name? And I think since starting the blog in 2017 with that name, I think all I've ever wanted to do is attempt to help just even one person to see themselves represented and see their struggles represented, and to not feel alone. I think that's all that I've ever really wanted to achieve, is just for someone to be like, oh my God, I get that. Or like, I've been through similar. Like, it's so lovely to achieve just that through one person. So I think maybe just continuing with achieving a sense of community. I think that's all I've ever really wanted, because I started the blog because there wasn't a lot on sensory processing in the UK. There was a lot of like American and Canadian websites out there in 2017 talking about like toddlers and sensory processing issues, which is great. Like, I don't knock that at all, but I just didn't see myself in that. And it's massively grown since then, obviously, and there's way more websites. But I think at the time I was just looking for someone else to be like, yeah, I'm in my 20s and also struggling with sensory stuff, because it was all just children, and children grow up into adults. Don't know if you're aware of that, but yeah.
No, I didn't know.
No. And those adults still have sensory issues.
Yeah, people tend to forget that. Even in schools, it's like, you know, you work in the SEND department, it's like, you can like take this massive sacrifice, right? I'm like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely happens. Like, yeah, it's frustrating, but hopefully it's getting better. That's all we can hope for. Final question. I feel like we've got so much to answer for in this question, because we've recorded 2 back-to-back podcasts.
We have.
We got lots of talking. It's kind of all merging into one. So if you accidentally answer a question from your own show, I'm not going to judge you. But if we were to take everything we've spoken about today and condense, say, your story down to a couple of sentences, what is the one key thing that you would like listeners to remember from your story?
I think that I would like them to remember that actually it's not about me. I'm so keen to hear other people's stories and just highlight other people's voices from different backgrounds and different walks of life. And I don't want the focus to be on me. And that's, I think, why I make a podcast talking to other people, because I think it's so important to hear other people's stories. And yeah, I guess I'd like listeners to remember to be kind.
Yeah, it's perfect. And if you want to listen to more stories, especially outside of higher education, I will link your show in the episode description. Everyone, please go check it out. It's a wonderful show. I think my episode's out end of Feb, but even if you're not listening to mine, go listen to someone else's. Emily does a fantastic job, and it's been so great to do this very long afternoon collab.
Thank you. You've so stifled a yawn then.
Oh, I'm not stifling at this point. I'm sleepy.
Fully.
Stimulants, man. But let's just wrap up. So the HE Enable podcast is the show dedicated to sharing our experiences of disability, neurodivergence and long-term health conditions in UK higher education. If you want to come and join the Patreon, get a couple of early episode releases, it's £1 a month. You're more than welcome to join. Links in the show description. And yeah, come follow on socials. If you want to come on as a guest and come and share your own experiences, there is a link tree in the show description with the show's email in. It'd be awesome if you wanted to get in touch. But otherwise, yeah, go listen to 21andsensory. Emily, thank you so much.